Well, hello, everyone. I'm George Wimberly, Director of Professional Development and Diversity Officer here at the American Educational Research Association, AERA, and I want to welcome you to our informational webinar on the AERA Minority Dissertation Fellowship Program in Education Research. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad that you are able to join us today from near and far. We are here today. We have something like over 1,700 people who have registered for this webinar. So we're really glad that the word got out about the webinar and that there's a lot of interest in this program. As we get started here today, I want to draw your attention to that we have two interpreters here today who are providing American Sign Language interpretation. I want to thank them for being here, as well as a person providing closed captioning. Also, I am joined by my colleague, Ayuola Agambiji, who will be taking questions today. And Ayo, at a point later in the webinar, will actually be a voice that will provide will give voice to your questions. Because there are so many people here who are registered, we do not for this webinar, we do not have the chat feature on, but we will take questions in the Q&A. So any questions that you have throughout the webinar, you can just pop them right into the Q&A box, and Io will be there in the background and she will respond to those questions. Just as a reminder too, we are recording today's webinar, and this recording will be posted on the AERA website along with the call for the Minority Dissertation Fellowship. So it will be there, and if you ever want to refer back to it as you're completing your application, or you want to share it with others at your school, you can always do that. It will be right there on the website. So again, I'm glad that you're here. So I have some PowerPoint slides I'm going to share with you here today. And these slides too will also be available on the site too that we'll be able to share with you along with the call. So a few things here as we tell you a little bit about AERA, or the American Educational Research Association. Some people know a little bit about us, but what we are is a national or international research society that our aim is around improving educational processes and scientific inquiry. And we are really promoting education research broadly defined. And that's from K-12 through post-secondary education, into the labor market and all as well. Dealing with institutions that deal with schools and students and things of that nature, educational policy. In AERA, we have about 2,600 or so individual members, but we probably touch another 130,000 or so people as a research membership organization. Although you do not need to be a member to apply for this fellowship. We're known for having peer-reviewed journals that are around methods and other research books. Our dissertation and research grants not only here at the dissertation stage, but there are also that we have training things that are provided for undergraduate students, as well as dissertation grants that are aimed at specific areas, such as doing secondary analysis. This is our Minority Dissertation Fellowship, and other research grants that are aimed at early career scholars at the postdoctoral stage. So quite a wide range of fellowships and training activities. And many know us for our annual meeting that is each spring, and where we bring together about 15,000 or so scholars across sessions, and where you get a chance to present your research and talk and share with the education research community. So I know that many of you are education researchers who are joining us. So as I said, we have 7 peer-reviewed journals here. If these will ring a bell. And many of our people who have been funded by this program and others have published in these journals. And specifically, and again, as I talked about our annual meeting, Our next meeting is in April 11th to 14th, 2024. We will be in Philadelphia. And so that is over the course of 5 days. We'll have about 2,000 or so concurrent sessions where these sessions will be where research will be presented in paper sessions, symposia, poster sessions, and other plenary sessions where education research will be shared and new knowledge will be shared, and many networking opportunities. So it's definitely a major event, and many know us for this event. So that is next spring. Registration for the annual meeting will open later this fall. So please do be aware. So as I was saying, so today we have about 17 or so hundred people who have registered, and I have a poll. So I'm going to keep this lively. I want to get an idea, and I asked Madhu, who's going to help us here he has a poll question for us. We're going to share. My colleague Madhu, who's going to there's a poll. I want to get an idea. I want to understand what is your primary role. You can just give me an idea. I want to see who's here. Wow. Give you a moment. Oh, these are my 30-second polls. Okay. All right. I see. This is very good here. I see that we largely have graduate students or in schools or colleges of education, and I'm going to share the results so that you all can see that as well. And this is good, but and as well as other graduate students and other programs, which we welcome you all as well too. And then our other university administrators and researchers. Hopefully, you'll be able to share this information from this from the webinar with others. This is really this is really important. I always try to get a good idea who's here, because as I talk about this fellowship, is that we are open to people who are doing research, and that's education research, as I said, broadly defined, coming from multiple. It could be different disciplines. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's specifically in an education program or school, but the research question can be really, again, broadly defined within a topic dealing with as children and youth, learning and learning contexts. So, and these oftentimes our members and people who are applying for our fellowships are across the behavioral and the social sciences and psychology, political science, economics, sociology, public policy, English, history. So it's quite the wide range, and it's all the focus of your study. And we really do like interdisciplinary studies, and studies where you see intersectionality across the disciplines. It's something that's encouraged in our work. So as I tell you a little bit more about this program, the Minority Dissertation Fellowship has been around now about 30 years. So we are very proud that we've had this, and multiple cohorts of fellows who we have support their dissertations, and in this case, we've been able to help them as this final push to get their dissertation out. Many are asking, so what does it take to be eligible for this fellowship? The biggest thing is this is geared for aimed at racial and ethnic minorities. So people who are members of underrepresented racial and ethnic groups in education research, specifically African Americans, Hispanics or Latinos, Asian Americans, American Indians or Alaska Natives, Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders. These are all self-identified minorities. You must be a graduate student, and with where you are at the writing stage of your dissertation at the beginning of the fellowship. You must be full-time as a student, however that's defined in your course. at your school. So many times I get a question, what does that mean? So this is a 1-year fellowship, and our aim is at the end of the fellowship that most of our fellows have successfully defended their dissertation work. So you should be at that last push, because it's a small amount of money. We really want to help you to be able to, so I always say, burn that candle by yourself in that last year. And at that last stage of the fellowship, and as being enrolled full time as a student, whatever that means by your school, where they call some schools that means that you're in a dissertation writing stage, and you're defined as what they call that is either now the scholastic residence, some of those types of terms, but however your school determines that. You are required to have advanced candidacy at the beginning of the award period. We do not start the award period before July 1st. So you can apply now. And as I'll talk more about this, because the applications are due on November 1st. Funds won't be dispersed if you're recommended for funding. Funds will not be dispersed until the earliest, July 1st, 2024. But sometimes that's the earliest. Sometimes it's a little bit later for some people, if they're depending on when your semester starts or your term starts, or as you are. Sometimes you get to that point that whatever it means for your school, when you need to advance to candidacy. For some I know it's actually defending a proposal. Where others it might be completing coursework. Our fellows, you must be a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or at a U.S. institution. Now, who is not eligible are students studying in the U.S. on a visa, are not eligible for this fellowship. However, if you are a U.S. citizen, for example, and you are studying in another country, you are eligible. It's open to all U.S. citizens, regardless of where you are. Or if you are happen not to be on a visa, but you're not a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident of the U.S., but you are at a U.S. institution, then you would be eligible and you fit the other requirements. Part of this is being that the funds for this fellowship are dispersed to your institution. Keep that in mind. And again, the key thing is also that your study must focus on an education research topic. So as I talk about that, and go back the other way here, research topics. So here is a good example, just a few of that I've kind of pulled out some of the topics that we will support. And this can be around issues again, student achievement, things, history of education, mathematics and science education, the whole STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education and learning context, topics around parental involvement. Again, not only from the whole spectrum from K-12 through higher education, school organization and finance, topics that look at specific issues by race, ethnicity, culture, gender, and within the education context are supported. Policies and practices related to student achievement and assessment. So quite broadly defined, and quite broadly defined across fields and disciplines. Similarly, along the same line, various methods. We're open for this fellowship. Scholars may use quantitative, qualitative, mixed method design, historical analysis. This could be survey research, action research, or secondary analysis of data. It pretty much runs the gamut. And that's something that's always needs to be very clear what you're going to do, of course, in the proposal, but it is not limited to one form of a research method. Just again, quite broad here. So along that line, talking about research methods, I have another poll, and this is specifically for our graduate students. who are here. Our second poll, I wanted to get an idea of if you can indicate the research method you're using in your dissertation. Another 30-second poll here. Give it a few more. Okay. All right. Wow. Let's look here. Okay. Oh, wow. We have half of our respondents here are using qualitative methods. Oh, great. Then another third using mixed methods, and yet still a few others in quantitative, historical, archival, and other methods. Okay, this is great, a good mix. So I always like to get a good idea of see where the field is. But you're all eligible if your method, the method does not matter. But so it's good to get a good to check the pulse of our audience and sort of the pulse of the field of people in education research. This is great. So, talk a little bit about the award and what happens here with this fellowship. Now, just some details here. So this award, it includes a $25,000 stipend. Now, the funds can be used for anything around your research and educational expenses and living expenses. This could be for tuition, and other fees, books, travel to conferences, any kind of software, anything that you need while you are conducting your research. I say that definitely funds can be used for tuition and other fees. However, we do encourage your institution to share any costs. In many cases, we will have a person who is recommended for these highly competitive awards. Your institutions are so proud that they will waive your tuition, and we definitely encourage that. Because that is always a way, because we really want to make sure that these funds, and we know that it's $25,000 and doesn't can't cover everything these days, but at least this can help you to have some time that you can burn that say burn the candle by yourself and not have to have other obligations. Some people are sometimes working still on a research project and having small, say, teaching assistantships and research assistantships. That's fine as well. However, the only thing that we do not allow with this award is if you have other major funding at the same time. So there's another major fellowship that's out there. I know there's some other major ones that have large stipends. I know NSF gives some awards, some, and other foundations and all too. Those are not, that is not permissible for this. But again, also with the award, you will be invited to the AERA annual meeting in 2025, and you'll come and you'll present your work in an invited poster session. And I always say this is a poster session where we have some of the best and the brightest of our not only our fellows from this program, but also from the AERA grants program and some other funded people from other fellowship programs. And it's definitely showcase your work, and we make sure that there are deans of schools of education and funders and others who are other senior scholars and all who are there to see your research. We also have activities during the annual meetings and networking activities specifically for those who have been awarded funding, where you'll get a chance not only to interact with senior scholars, but also to discuss sometimes next steps with your own research. Now, those are the things that mostly are happening around the annual meeting. For the most part, with this award, we sort of we pull back and let you, again, we know that you're all graduate students and you're working very hard to finish your dissertation. So we sort of, I think about this as staying out of your way. Again, for this 1 year, it's 1 year non-renewable. But at the same time, though, we do hope that if any way that for our fellows, if we can provide any type of professional development and other activities that can help to build your research capacity. That as opportunities come up, and during that year as a fellow, that we help to support you with that. For we not only do our sort of career and publishing workshop and things we do at the annual meeting. There are professional development and training courses that happen in person during the annual meeting that our fellows are encouraged to take, as well as things that happen virtually, and then other networking opportunities that not only are geared in general to the fellows, but then we also work to try to have things that are specific to you and your own research in your area. For example, if you are an educational historian, we hope to connect you with senior scholars, that maybe new senior scholars for you in the area, and that in your specific area, to not only see your work, but that where you may be able to have to get informal mentoring and guidance. And the other thing is, and once you I have to think about this, is once you have been named one of our fellows, even though the funding may end after the first year, we like to follow your career and see where you are in early career, and if things come up, and and I see that there's something going on, 2 years down the road, and there's a professional development training activity, and we may invite you, or at least keep you informed. So that hoping that that your work will soon appear in peer-reviewed journals and books and things of that nature too. So we definitely follow your career and keep an eye out for those things. So let's talk a little bit about your proposal. And this is probably this is where the questions often come up, because you're at this stage, and I know many of you are now asking these things as you are many of you are at the proposal stage, or actually collecting data, and maybe even in the writing stage of your dissertation. So the big thing about this application is that there is a dissertation prospectus that's required, and with that, you need to prepare a dissertation abstract. You're going to state the problem, your theoretical conceptual framework, brief review of the literature, your key research questions or hypotheses that you're testing. All this is in these first 8 pages, and a few other things I'll review here. Talk about your research design, your method. Now, this is going to is really key here, where your rationale. Why are you using these? Not just here are some questions we're going to use, or something of that nature. But why? Why are these? What are your interview protocols? Why are you using these questions? To be very clear about that. We specifically asked for you to talk about your positionality as a researcher. How did you come about this study? Many of you now are at the point where you may have some findings. Maybe you're collecting data, or you're anticipating some findings. To talk about that a little bit with us. That's always very, very, very helpful. That's asked specifically in the proposal. And then, how do you see disseminating this information? What's your plan? Definitely, that's important. So what journals might you publish in, or have you already published some of this research in? Will this become a book, or do you see this as maybe your work is going to speak to policymakers or legislators, or K-12 superintendents, for example, or teachers? So that's always important to be very, very clear there. What do you see there as your plan? Okay. Also, though, and as part of your method and things, be very clear though with that you have, if there's survey instruments or interview protocols, you have an appendix where you're free to make the appendix as short or as long as you like. You can include any relevant survey instruments and interview protocols or analysis plan, tables and charts. We allow you to include all that. But it's very important also that as you include these in an appendix, that you've talked about in the body of the narrative, and you refer to these things. So we're very clear to as you, what about your interview protocol or in your analysis plan, or is that you, if you're referencing something, and it's always important there. Sometimes we get things and it's like, why is this here? And you're just sort of wondering, and that's not always a good thing. It's better. It's the stronger proposal when we have, it's cohesive and we know why you're giving us these supporting documents. And of course, sometimes in some studies, I see a lot of you are doing some qualitative work. Sometimes there are now pictures and things too. Um, that can be important. One of the things I will hesitate on is that sometimes web links and things, and we cannot guarantee that we'll go off and be able to watch a video or anything of that nature. Though, try to avoid some of those things. I mean, every now and then someone has a web link, and if it's or a video, it's more if you can even just talk about it, what's going to be there in your plan or in a supporting document, even if there is if there's a still picture from a video and some discussion, that can also be helpful. The other thing here is that we do require 2 letters of recommendation. I suggest that you request letters of recommendation from people who are familiar with your research. Usually, these are people who are on your dissertation committee, usually your chair and another committee member, someone who's familiar with your study, how you developed the study, why you're doing the study, and intimately familiar with your work and helping to guide you through this process. Committee members are always, I think, argued the best people, often to give you that support of that letter, and that is required to be sent in separately to us. So it's very important that you are responsible, that you have your letter writers that know that the letter is due on November 1st, and to send those on to us. The other piece is, it's very helpful for us to have as part of this proposal, is your timeline. Again, keeping in mind that this is a 1-year write-up grant, and so we really want to know, kind of get an idea of where you are and how you envision this unfolding. Most people are, right now you're probably at a certain stage, maybe you've already proposed, or so, you can give us that where you are now, and how you anticipate this unfolding. And most will finish and successfully defend sometime in 2025, given that this is a 1-year grant. So if that's one way of thinking about this, as to where you are, what your plan is, and then that you're ready at that point for whatever your next career step is, be it going on the academic job market or the research job market or a postdoc. Just to be clear. And sometimes I get questions like, "Oh, should I apply now?" But if you work with your advisor, your chair of your committee, and ask if you think that you're going to, right now, I get a big question often is, "Oh, I think I am going to finish in fall of 2024. So, should I apply? I'm writing now, and I think I'll finish next fall." A lot of times, my response to that is, yes, you still should apply now, because sometimes what happens is you think you're going to be finished next fall, but next fall becomes spring 2025. Sometimes dissertations are something that you've never done before, and sometimes they take a little longer than anticipated. So that's one of those things to think about. Many people I've just seen, it always takes a little longer than you anticipate. And even if you think you're going to finish you're planning definitely to finish in, say, May or April 2025, and it ends up being August of 2025, that's okay too. I mean, we will, if you're offered funding, we wait until you're finished, and at the end, the last payment comes in and all. that's okay. So we know that um, great work doesn't always follow a timeline. So, but again, always work closely again with your advisor as you're thinking about this and working on your proposal. So, questions we always get: what makes for a competitive proposal? You know, there's certain things that I always like to think about are sort of given not only for this competition but for any competition, is that you're following the proposal guidelines. And it's, we spent a lot of time putting these guidelines out, and you have the call that you follow exactly as to what's asked, as in terms of the structure. As we've gone through this with abstract and all the different components that are needed, that is part of your proposal as they are relevant to your study. That's again, I can't emphasize that enough. But sometimes you might apply for another organization's fellowship, and they might ask different questions. Don't send us theirs. That's something that's we don't want theirs. We want something different. That's why we have our questions. Make sure that things are clear and concise. That you are, that your study is eligible, and that you're doing something that's, I always like to think about this, the best proposals, the best studies are those that will move the field, and they're and new knowledge and using methods, or that could become from a rigorous use of methods, or a new method that you're using. What is it? What are we gaining from this study? That you're very clear about that, and clear about, as you're talking about things in your 8 pages, that your measures are clearly defined. You know what's there, and that you're very clear about your analytic technique. We give a couple of examples of some resources that you can refer to, but also it's important that you have other eyes review your proposal. Not only so much, I know everyone now has things like, you can all check for the spelling and complete sentences and all those kinds of things. But really, it's important is that you're able to, for the ideas, and it's very clear, because you'll read these things, it's like, oh, the proposal is clear. But get not only your peers to read what you're submitting, but other faculty members. Many schools I know have workshops and things that are designed for proposal preparation and grant writing. If your school has that, I encourage you to take advantage of that. Some schools require you to have all proposals like run through your Office of Sponsored Programs before they are submitted. So please do adhere to those guidelines and check into that. If you are offered funding, before we are dispersing any funds, we will ask for things such as your IRB approval. That's going to be your internal review board approval. That is quite important. So to make sure all those things are accounted for at that point. So definitely important issues. But sometimes, though, I know there's some things that I call these are common pitfalls. Things that happen and sort of happen in dissertations that just sort of proposals, why they just aren't funded. Sometimes just that, that someone may have data they've collected or they're using a data set that's doing a secondary analysis, and they just can't effectively address their research questions using this. Using this data, maybe it seems that the scope is too broad, or things aren't clear in the argument. Things that if you're doing secondary analysis and things, that it's important that you're talking about things like selection bias. That's very important. Your methods section needs to be very clear, clear and detailed. The details are important. That we want to know if you are going into a high school and urban community and you want to, give us information about that school. Is it a large school? And are you studying if you're studying, say, transitions from high school to college, and you're focusing on 11th graders in the school, and you're going to do interviews with, let's say, 15 11th graders. Give us some details about those students and about the school and how you're doing this and how you selected them, so that we're very clear. And that, because all the proposals are thoroughly reviewed by a panel of senior scholars, our minority dissertation selection committee that is well versed in research methods and the research in the field. And even if although we have a very broad call, if someone as a standing member of our committee does not, say, fit within your area, we will reach out to other scholars. So AERA is quite large, and the education research community, well, it's always great that we can have people that will help us and review and give us insight. So do think about that, because others will review your work. And we definitely want things that, what's new? What are we going to learn from this? From your study? And to be clear, what you anticipate us learning. The other thing is, so in the end, when you're all ready for to submit your proposal, on that you're very clear that you follow the guidelines about a statement of problem. Things are all in the proposal here that are all laid out in the call, that you follow these steps. I often do like a checklist. Have we done all these things? Is this here? You've discussed all these things. And as you keep going through this, and maybe even if you have, say, one of your peers review, that they have these things, this checklist, and you're going through the proposal and seeing what's there, and that you've hit these items. And also, again, always that your advisor, your chair has reviewed your final proposal, you secure your letters, things are in with us on time and submitted, because once you submit electronically, you will get a email message saying that it's been received. If you are missing something, well, we will get in touch with you via email. That will happen. Everything's due to us on November 1st, 2023. That's a Wednesday, and the portal was open. You submit things, and that's also the same day that your letters of recommendation. Those are all due that same day as well. So and our decisions are announced at the latest is May 2024. So, and that's all will be spelled out even in the message you receive once you submit. You can start your application online, and then you can actually save it. You don't have to actually submit right away, so you could even start now. But keep in mind, if you do start it and save it, you actually can save it with a password and all. But please do keep track of your password, because AERA, we cannot, we don't keep a record of your password. That is yours. So make sure that you have that password and all too, so that you can return to your application. But all this information that will be is there online and part of the call. So I am going to stop there. I'm going to have and see if I will take some questions, and I'm going to even ask Io. I'll even stop my share. Io, is there?
Well, George. Yes, so we have a couple of questions here. So one question that people have been asking is, who should provide your letter of recommendation?
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you. The letter of recommendation. I'll say this again, that it really should come from someone who is definitely involved with your study. Your chair, usually the dissertation chairperson, a person who knows what your research is, who has been there with you from the beginning, because we really want yeah, we all know that you're all graduate students and that you probably walk on water and that you're all great. But we really want to know in your letter, like your advisor can talk about your study and talk about, your what kind of student you have been and how either your growth, your development, and making this recommendation. Someone who knows your work. That's going to be and that's very important. But it all and that's so your chair provides one, and maybe another person who is on your committee again, who can speak to your work, to your research, or often to if there's someone who can speak to the contribution that you're going to make to the field, that this work will make to the field, for example. We do ask for two letters. I mean, they could be people with very similar roles in your academic development, your scholarly development. But it really it can be people who are just at different spots. Io.
Okay, thank you for that. So another common question is about working. So people want to know if fellows can be working during the fellowship.
Yeah, this is always an important question. We cannot stop you from working. So you can have a teaching assistantship, a research assistantship, or even if you do have a full-time job. But one of the things I always will advise the people who we fund is that, of course, we want to support you and we want you to finish in a timely fashion. So, if there are ways you're using these funds, that this can help you to, maybe you don't work as much. Maybe you're able, and I've had, people do creative things. Maybe if they are able to, in the end, take off, a couple of days a week, the last 6 months of their as they're working on their dissertation. If these funds help you for that. So there are different ways. We hope that this is helpful for you.
Okay, another question is, are DACA students, people of DACA status eligible to apply?
That's the question that comes up. Well, what we ask is that you must be enrolled at a U.S. institution. If you're not here on a visa, but you must be at a U.S. institution, because also the funds for this will be dispersed through the institution. So keep in mind, and as you're identifying as a racial ethnic minority person.
Another question being asked is, if someone is multiracial or multi-ethnic, can they apply?
Well, that's a question, is if you identify, again, this is a self-identified minority person into one of our 5 groups, or one or more. So if one of those groups is part of your multi-ethnic makeup, then you would be eligible. I want to say another thing about eligibility. I see some of the other questions. So right now, if you are applying for this fellowship, you do not have to have your proposal officially approved, but you should be working on it in earnest. Because think about this, is that so by next year this time, you should be definitely at that point where you should be close to, if not already, in the writing stage. So you do not have to have the proposal necessarily approved officially by your committee at this point on November 1st, when the application is due. But by the time that it should be something that's well developed, so that you can at least that you are at least far enough along that you can hit the criteria that are asked about, your research questions, your hypotheses, the literature, talk about your method, what you are going to do, in the timeline for finishing. thinking about it like that, before you are actually are able to disperse funds, you must be a candidate, and whatever that means at your school. So that could be some schools. It is having a formal proposal hearing, and maybe you're not going to have that until next, September, even though you might be working on things. But that's fine. We will wait. If you're recommended for funding, we will hold the funding that day, but not now. If it comes to that point, at other schools, it may be that you've completed your coursework, and if that's fine. Some may even ask if I'm your candidate now. Well, that's fine too, because you may be you're working on a dissertation. You may be that person's a little bit farther along, so you are eligible. And a lot of these things, though, too, we do have these criterion all around candidacy, but a lot of this, so I think to keep in mind and that's why I always say to work closely with your advisor, and as you read through the call, as to where your study is and how you're developing your study, and submit the strongest proposal. You can still be collecting data. That can be fine, because we can have, at that point you should have at least some sort of if there's some sort of data collection instrument, or if it's interview protocols or something that are already that are in use, or even though those may not be finished, or something that you can speak to, at least in this proposal. So, and then a lot of other things, though, too. Again, it's more of the questions are around your work, in terms of where you are with things and your eligibility. We do accept both people who are in EDD and PhD programs, a doctoral level, even in Psych D. But you need to. But the key thing is that you are working on a dissertation. That is a document. That is, in some cases, and this is your typical is a manuscript. It could be a 3-paper dissertation, for example, but a dissertation nonetheless. Io, any other question?
Yes, so there's other questions about what the work can be about, if the work can be about students that are international and are not necessarily in the US.
Thank you. That is a very good question. Yes, we do support studies that are international, most definitely. So if you are the research you're doing, if you're abroad and focusing on students in another country, that is fine. And it's still an education research question that you're focusing on. The location does not matter.
Okay. Another question is about the funds and how the funds can be spent. People were wondering if they can be used for, like, more specifically waiving the tuition. People are unclear on what that means, as well as if they have another fellowship, what is considered major funds or major funding.
Well, here's the short answer to this. So you can use the funds for research related expenses, living expenses. It can be for tuition, books, computer kinds of things, software, things around collecting data if necessary. In some cases, though, as I was saying too, if your school may waive your tuition because you get this, the school then, so you're not, what we don't necessarily want is to take if you have $25,000 and you have to give $10,000 to your school. And most of the time your school doesn't want that either, because they want to cost share with this as well. And they are very glad that you have this. So they want you to have these funds so that you can focus on your own work. Similarly, though, if people ask what's another major fellowship, often it's been the person who has, say, the Spencer Foundation gives another very generous fellowship, which I think right now is like $27,000+ or so, and past it's been the Ford Foundation. Those are two very similar fellowships as to this stipends, but you cannot hold those concurrently with our fellowship. If you have, I guess I said, other major funding that allows you to, some people have been able to, say, suspend something for a year or two, or if it's something major. I mean, if you're an NSF funded scholar, you don't have to work for it. It's fellowship dollars. All you have to do is be a student there. Then, and it's of equal value or close to equal value, major funding like that, then you can't have both at the same time. But these are things that once you're recommended for funding, that we will work, we work through.
Okay. Another question is there a word count on the application, on the dissertation proposal?
No, we do not have a word count, but we do have the page limit. And ask that you adhere to the page limit that's specified in the call. In terms of for the narrative. However, as I was saying, the appendices are unlimited.
Another question that I'm receiving a lot is people who are waiting for their green card want to know if they're eligible to apply. They're no longer international students, but waiting on their green card.
The question would be, if you apply, it would still have to be that we would need to figure out at the end, if you're recommended for funding, what type of student you are. And a lot of that would have to probably be on a case-by-case basis, because again, the funds would have to go through your school. And in some cases, people do finish early. I mean, there can be a prorated amount if that's the case, if it happens. But a lot of times, like I said, people think they're going to finish. You think you're finishing in December, and it might not work out quite like that of next year. And you might. So I always say to err on the side of I'll still apply. If it comes down, like if say, for example, you're recommended for funding and we contact you next spring, you say, hey, I'm about to finish this week defending the dissertation. That's great. We won't be able to fund you, but that's good. We wish you well. And maybe you will apply for other things the AERA has to offer as at the early career stage. That is perfectly fine. And I know some say, that again, finishing early is not, if you finished in May, June, that's not necessarily all that early. July 25, because we would want. It often takes people a little time to deposit and things too. So we definitely support you. And again, we really want you to finish. Other questions, Ayo?
Most of the questions have been answered. I'm just getting a lot of repeats. And just people want to know if this recording will be available after.
Yes, the recording will be posted on the AERA website, along with the call. So on the same page with the call for proposals, where applications is, this is where we will post this. So give us a little time because we need to do some rendering and make sure that our closed captioning and all are correctly aligned. And we will make sure that that all comes together, and we will post this there along with the slide presentation that will be there. But I also reiterate, if you have questions, feel free to email us those questions. Now that is perfectly fine. I'm seeing a couple other questions. I just want to say this in terms of our interdisciplinary focus. Whoever, if you are a sociologist, for example, and in your recommenders are sociologists, and that's fine. That's great. If that's your chair and they're speaking to your work, you're doing sociology of education, and and they can speak to your work. That's perfectly fine. It's really though that someone knows about you, knows about your work, what you're doing. But like I was saying, that is really what's key here, and that you're working with your advisor. I also will encourage you, that you are with any of these calls or anything that you apply for, that you take the calls and you read them quite closely to make sure that you're hitting the points that they're asking. And if you have questions, that you reach out. It takes a little bit of time to do these. I always say it can give you, I would give 3 to 4 weeks just to complete one of these proposals and apply for this. That's not something you can just sort of do the week before. And because you want to make sure that others have had a chance to read it and things of that nature. And the other thing is, as I said, I'm going to make sure I give you my contact information. If you do have questions still, there you go. Feel free to contact me. Here's our email address, fellowships@aera.net. And go onto our webpage as well. Any other questions that you have. As I said, this will be posted. And all that will be very important. The only thing I also is, unfortunately, because we do get so many proposals, we are unable to respond with any kind of feedback from our committee. But we do make decisions are announced as the latest in May of 2024. So decisions are all announced for those who we accept, and also we are unable to accept all announced via email. And it will come from the AERA fellowships. So that will be in your email box. And again, always feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And again, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like our hour is up. So again, if you have questions, reach out to us. I want to thank our interpreters for being here again today, and our closed captioner, as well as our AERA staff members who have assisted with this informational webinar. Badu, Acharia, and Ayo, thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and I look forward to receiving your proposals.